Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds. I'm sat here with Lee and Jo. They have got over 150 properties in their portfolio with a portfolio worth over £20 million. And in this interview, they're going to be talking exactly how they built up such a humongous property portfolio and how you can do the same thing too. So, hey guys, thank you so much for coming to my house.
Samuel, thank you very much for the invite. Really appreciate it.
Now, something really interesting is in my experience, most rich people, and you might not consider yourselves rich, but most people would consider, normal people would consider you as rich with such a massive portfolio. Most rich people hide away and they don't come on YouTube, they don't talk about how much they're earning, how they did it. So my first question is, what made you guys agree to sit down in my house with the cameras on and openly share about how you've done it?
Well, first of all, we just love your videos and the inspiration, especially you've given my son. So it's been amazing, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's managed to buy his first property at age 16, down to coming on the crash course.
That is ridiculous. Absolutely crazy. And I can't wait to unravel how that happened and what he did. Your backgrounds then, you're both hairdressers, and that's your sort of industry. How did this all start? I mean, you bought your first property before I was even born, which makes me feel extremely young. 32 years ago, is that correct?
32 years ago, yeah. It was
so
just
happened?
Drilled into me, you've got to buy your house, got to buy your house.
Yeah.
And so I bought the first one when I was 21. Then I paid $44,000 for it. Within 6 months, the value went down to about $36,000. Interesting, yeah. So then I carried on saving and I wanted to buy another property. All the banks and everything said, no, it's bad investment. I said, well, the price has gone down. Obviously, they're on sale now. This is a good time to buy. So went round to every single bank. This is pre-buy-to-let, so had to go along, have a business plan. And I couldn't find anyone to lend me the money. Read a book and said, you don't know how close you are to success if you give up. So I thought, I'm not going to give up. So I thought the last place I'm going to try was my existing bank, who wouldn't give me an overdraft for £100. So I thought, I'll try them. Saw the bank manager. He looked at me and said, where have you got the money from, the deposit? I said, well, I've saved it. And he said, right, we're going to give you a chance. So we had to go with profit and loss forecast. And he lent me the money to buy the second property then.
So that was just straightforward, buy it, rent it out,
sit on it.
And at the time as well, like looking back, if we could look fast forward into the future, I mean, in the 90s, property prices absolutely soared all through the 90s. And like, I mean, you can look back in the last, even the last 50, 60, 70 years, every 10 years, property prices have basically doubled every 10 years. And everyone thinks, yeah, but that's not going to happen in the next 10. But they were saying that when I started in 2008. It's finished now, the boom is finished, but actually the houses that I bought in 2009, 2010 have now doubled in value. So there's just something about property.
History repeats itself.
Yeah.
All the time. So
and also you're still both aggressively investing today and your strategies have changed. You do more creative things now.
A lot more creative now with the knowledge and the experience that we've gleaned over the years. Everything's a lot different now.
So when you guys met then, Jo, Lee was already a property investor on a small time. He had about 8 properties?
Yeah, he had 8.
So when did you find out and how did you...
I think it was a couple of months in, so he kept it quiet at first.
Yeah. Again, rich people hiding away.
Yeah. I think you didn't want a girlfriend that was just after you because you had 8 houses maybe. So but he kept it quiet. We were both in the same hairdressing industry and
In fact, I think it was when I was always around the town. You know, we said about viewing properties, you've got to view the most properties. You used to see me and I was always running around to estate agents, literally running, pre-internet. So literally I'd run from estate agent to estate agent to estate agent.
I always saw you running between
estate agents. Why are you running everywhere? So I'm actually running to the estate agents trying to get all the viewings in.
Wow.
Yeah, it's true.
And also, Jo, you said that while you'd be at the salon, he'd be getting paid from his tenants, and in those days they'd pay in cash.
Yes, they were.
And you'd think, this surely isn't all coming from hairdressing. What's going on?
Yeah, I was a little bit suspicious at first, and I kept thinking, where is all this cash coming from every day when he comes out of work?
An upright guy, honest,
yeah,
integrity.
absolutely.
How's he doing
and
this?
I knew he was an honest guy, but obviously that's where it was coming from, and I didn't know that at the time. But
Another thing is this: I know that when you started, when you were building your portfolio, you would live massively below your means. And work really hard, save every penny, live massively below your means, and then invest, which is quite an old school kind of strategy, which I think you've changed your mind a little bit since then. But just talk to me about how your philosophy maybe has changed as an investor from in the 90s or early 2000s to now in 2021.
Well, I think back then knew nothing else apart from you had to save a deposit. Buy the next house, save the deposit. Now with all the different strategy, lease options, rent to rent, etc., I didn't know any of that back then.
Yeah.
So now obviously the strategies have all changed.
So what did you think when you guys came to my Property Investors Crash Course? Because I remember being really surprised, because we do have people at the Property Investors Crash Course that are successful. We have people that have got 4 or 5 houses and they're looking to scale up. But a lot of people that come to the Property Investors Crash Course are beginners, just starting out. So I was going around asking people, and it was a virtual crash course as well. So I was calling people out on the screen. What are you here to learn? Where are you starting from? And I was asking everybody where they were from, what their backgrounds were. And I remember seeing you, and you were there at the crash course. And I said, right, what are you here to learn? And you came across really humble and said, I'm here to learn about this. I'm here to network. I'm here to be inspired. I'm here to get... And then I said, great. And are you in property at the moment? And you said, yes. I said, great. How long have you been in property? You said, 32 years. And I thought maybe you own a couple of properties and you've owned them for years. So have you got a decent portfolio? Yeah, about 150 houses. I was like, wow, you should be running the course. What's happening? So firstly, what was it that made you book on? And secondly, what was your experience?
Experience was fantastic. The enthusiasm, the inspiration you give everyone is amazing. But you can always learn something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how small it is, but that could be something that could change something. When you're out in business, you think, there's something else I could do here.
Yeah.
Maybe that strategy won't work, but this will.
Yeah. We've always, right from the beginning, haven't we, always attended everything we could possibly attend, networked wherever we could, learned something wherever we can. So, as soon as we realised that you were on doing virtual crash courses when we were in lockdown, we were like, right, let's attend.
Yeah.
So that's
I think I've been on 3 now.
Yeah, well, you were at the physical crash course last week.
Last week.
Yeah.
Fantastic again. Made some good contacts there as well.
Yeah, amazing.
Amazing. Well, it's great. It's really good for me as well. It's nice confirmation to hear, other property investors that are very successful coming in and saying that the content's great and it works. So that's fabulous. So talk to me a little bit, and I'm going to come on to your son later and what he's done. But vanilla buy to let, people understand. It makes sense. Putting money into bricks and mortar. The bricks and mortar is going to hold its value. You're also getting rent. Talk about some of the creative strategies that you've done. I know now you're doing serviced accommodation. You've done lease option agreements. You've done some incredible deals. And you were just telling me, for instance, about the deal that you did in Torquay.
Yeah, so that's interesting because that's a joint venture as well.
Right.
That's permitted development. So bought that at auction. So there's lots of different things all in that one deal, really. So
talk me through the deal. Let's hear, because there's a lot of lessons in it.
So obviously, constantly thinking about property. The moment we wake up, first thing we do is probably jump on Rightmove, all the estate agents, having a look at that. That's all we ever talk about. So searching, found this property. Torquay's getting redeveloped at the moment. Saw this property coming up to auction. It was 200,000. Did some research on it. Previous person had paid about $500,000 for it. So I thought it was a bit steep. So went to auction, didn't sell. Went back to auction for a second time, still didn't sell. Third time, went back to auction, didn't sell. Now they've reduced the reserve to 150,000. Now it starts to look a bit more interesting.
And this is in Torquay. And
this is in Torquay.
What is this?
Torquay's, I think it's just been renowned for the best seaside resort in Britain now during lockdown.
Sorry, but what's the property? Is it like an apartment block? Or?
It's a commercial property with offices above.
So why do you think in a boom, which we've been in for the last 18 months, this property wasn't selling at auction? Why did it continually fail?
I think possibly because it's a bit harder to get finance on the commercial property.
Yeah.
Perhaps other people didn't see the angle that we saw on it. Again, it's experience. On this particular property, the ground floor rates payable were around about 30,000 a year. So if it's empty, so suddenly you've got this property that's draining you by 30,000 a year.
And commercial properties are valued based on their rent.
Based on their rent.
If there's no rent, then the commercial property is going to be very difficult to finance.
The landlord's lost his tenant who was paying 37,000 a year at the time.
Yeah.
So we knew that if we reduce the space on the commercial element, we can get the rates exempt then.
So what do you say? You've presumably pre-auction, right? Call the.
No, this is post-auction. So this is post-auction.
But it keeps going back on. So is it pre or is it post?
Yeah. So it's post-auction now.
Yeah.
Reserve, you can buy it for 150. So we said we're going to buy it blind at 140. So the auctioneer said no, reserve's 150. We're sticking at that. So I said, well, we haven't seen it. I'm in Portugal at the time. So later on, he said, do you want to buy it? I said, well, no, we don't want to buy it at the 150. He said, we'll do a viewing. Business partner went along, viewed the property. He had a look, did a Zoom call with him. He said, yeah, it's a good buy. He's not super excited. So I said, right, we'll offer 125 now. So we went back to the auctioneer, offered 125. He said, well, they wouldn't accept 140. They're not going to accept 125. I said, well, we've seen it now. We've seen a bit of damp, this, that, and the other. And eventually he came back. He said, right, they're going to take the 125. So we took it at the 125.
Fantastic. So 125, you've got this commercial property. When was this, last year?
This was about last year. Yeah, it was June, just post-lockdown, actually.
Yeah.
Just post-lockdown.
Post-lockdown, while everyone else is worrying about lockdown, you're out worrying
So
about
we're
how
out,
much
yeah.
can you get this discounted
So
by?
we got this property now. We split it into two separate units now. So now we're rates exempt. So we haven't got to pay rates on it.
Yeah.
So suddenly it's not costing us anything to have this property.
Yeah.
We've advertised it. We've reduced the rent massively. We can't afford to. Now we've only paid 125,000. We get renting of 15,000 a year from the shop now. So suddenly it's all paying for itself, looking lovely. And then we've applied for permitted development for the upper floors to convert into two flats.
Nice.
So that's going to cost us around about 100,000. End value is going to be about 450.
So bought it for 125.
125.
Gonna have to spend about how much?
100,000 on it.
100,000. So all in about 225.
225.
With an end value of 400 grand.
400, 450. We're getting 15,000 for the shop, and for each of the flats on service accommodation should get around about 15,000 each for them.
So there we go. You're still doing deals today, the best kind of deals as well. Like basically, it's a BRR, it's a serviced accommodation.
Joint venture.
It's a joint. How did you joint venture? Who's the joint venture partner?
I won't name him, but he's cash rich. Doesn't want to get involved in dealing with tenants, builders, or anything else like that.
He's putting the money in.
He's put some of the money in. We've
Right.
gone 50-50.
Yeah.
On it.
Question for you actually, Joe. Why, when you have got lots of houses and you're doing well financially, why would you find a joint venture partner to put the money in? Why would you not just finance everything yourself?
Because the money, our pot of money then that we're then reinvesting gets spread further if you're doing joint ventures.
Exactly.
And this is a guy that we've been working with for years anyway. So, you know, he gets a good return, he's happy.
Yeah.
So
do you think in order to scale big, like you guys have done, £20 million portfolio, to scale big work, starting as hairdressers, you didn't receive inheritance money when you got started?
Nothing.
Pet, self-made?
Self-made.
completely.
So to be able to get a £20 million property portfolio with 150 properties or so, do you think that to do that, really, you need to be leveraging other people's money, the bank's money, bringing in joint ventures?
Yeah.
You have to. That's why it was slow at the start, because I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
And that's a massive lesson. And that's what we teach, right? It's like, you don't have to have lots of money to start with. You need to be able to just pull in other people's money. Now your son, who's 16, which I'd love to talk about what he did and how he did it. But firstly, why did you send him on the crash course and send him to me when you could have just told him yourself?
Well, I'll let you
he's
explain that.
17 at the time.
17 now.
No, he's 17 now.
Yeah, 17 now. But
Well,
he
whatever.
was 16 when he came to the crash course, last year.
So why did you send him? Well, why didn't you just tell him yourself? Because you've got 150 properties.
Oh my God, he's heard us. He's grown up listening to us. Like, there must be so much information in his brain anyway that he doesn't even realise is there because he's absorbed it over the years. But I think he stumbled across Samuel, I think, on his own, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he stumbled across you, and then he just started talking to us about you, and we said, oh yeah, we've heard of Samuel Leeds, we know who you mean, and then it just came about that way, I think, didn't it?
But it's that inspiration, your energy was so infectious.
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes as well, hearing the same thing but with a different voice from somebody
Definitely.
else?
Having that third party just made all the difference.
Yeah. So he comes to the crash course age 16 at the time, now he's 17, and presumably he would have loved a handout from his parents, and that would have been great. I mean, most who wouldn't, but you refused to go down that route, and you said, we're actually not going to give you a penny, but we will teach you, we'll give you the experience, we'll send you off on a crash course, but you need to get the money and the invest yourself. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So come on, tell me what happened.
So I said, we know certain people with money. You're going to have to explain it, what you're doing and what this money's for and how you're going to secure it. We'll explain everything to you, but it's going to be your property deal.
So he's going to have to pitch private investors himself, and you're not going to give him any money.
We're helping him. We're standing in by the side. And
who found the deal?
I'm trying to think. I think it was a joint thing. We were doing it.
Looking together.
We were looking together. We were looking together, and then he had to pick it, and then he had to find out, work out the figures.
You'd give him your opinion, right? So he'd be able to say, look, I'm looking at this, what do you think? And you'd help him.
A bit like your course, you'd sit at the side and say, why have you picked this? And then you would explain why you picked that. I said, well, I think that works. What are the figures? And he's working out the figures, and we got the spreadsheets, and I said,
what
the
a
figures all
great
stack
thing
up.
to be able to do, though. What an amazing thing to be able to, and I can't wait until my son's 16. I was going to say 18, but he doesn't have to be 18.
No.
But until I can sort of sit with him and go, right, I'm not going to give you any money, but I'll help you. I mean, what the best gift you can give your kids, I've got 3 kids now, is not your money, but it's your personal development and your education and your knowledge.
Yeah.
But that experience has been invaluable. He's learning about so much about EPCs, the tenancies, everything you have to do.
So he finds a house. You guys look at it. It looks good. What are the figures?
Paid 36,000 for it.
Wow. Where is it?
It's in Durham.
Okay. I've got houses in Durham as well.
He's got a house in Durham.
36,000 pounds. Just is this on like open market or?
No, it was, believe it or not, a buy it now auction.
Okay.
So it was a bit like eBay.
Right.
So that's it. You commit yourself and you buy it now.
Cool. 36 grand. He finds the house, and then he finds an investor. And he pitches them on it, and what happened next? What's the deal?
So he set up his own company. So he's got his own limited company. So he's put it into that.
Can you have a company when you're 16, 17?
Yeah. So I'm a director of the company.
Yeah.
So he's the 100% shareholder as well.
Okay.
So
you can set up a company as a kid, whereby you are 100% shareholder.
Yeah.
But you need an adult to be a director. Is that correct?
He can be a director as well.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so he can be a director as well.
And the company has bought the property.
And the company's bought the property.
And he's set up a bank account as well.
So he's got his bank account.
So how did the pitch go when he pitched it to this investor?
I think because obviously he's got the security in me being a director as well.
Yeah.
And he's got first charge over the property.
And is the investor getting fixed return, or is it a joint
He's getting a
venture?
fixed return of 5%.
Nice.
He was getting 0 point something in an ISA.
Yeah.
So it was a no-brainer for him.
Yeah. That's awesome. He must be really proud of himself, and you guys must be really proud of him too.
Yeah, you're very really proud of him.
I have to say, in lockdown, like all he wanted to do was learn, and he was trying to pin you down to training, wasn't he, every single day? Because you were in lockdown in Portugal and we were in England.
So we did it virtually.
Dad, we need to FaceTime. We need an hour's training
trawling
every
all
day.
through the different properties and everything.
So you were like his mentor, basically.
He was,
So
that's absolutely.
So we paid
awesome.
36,000. He's just increased the rent from 433 to 450.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So your son has got his own house, age 16, no money down deal, and it's basically against the same stuff that we teach, right? It's just use other people's money.
Exactly.
Joint ventures, here's how you structure it. Learn to find deals. If you find the right deals, the money will come.
There's so much money out there, you've just got to find it.
Yeah. So, okay, there's a lot of people watching this that might be a little bit like your son in terms of they haven't got money, they're wanting to get started, they've got the same fire that your son's got, Rocco, right?
Yeah.
Same passion, same fire, but they're thinking, I wish I had parents that could help me, because that's what people are going to be thinking, right? Even though you didn't give him any money. I wish I had parents that could mentor me and would send me off on Samuel Leeds crash courses and stuff. I mean, most people's parents are like, don't go to these courses. You just focus on getting a job. So what advice, with the time that we've got right now, would you give to my viewers? How can they do this?
To get around people that can teach them and help them.
Yeah.
Networking.
Just don't give up. Keep going. And all the naysayers, just keep going, and never stop. Because you don't know how close you are to success if you give up.
Yeah.
The moment you give up, you failed. So you've got to keep going.
Not giving up is important, but most people don't even get started.
Well, you've got to make the start. What do they say? The journey of 1,000 steps starts with one step.
But a lot don't do that.
Yeah.
A lot just think about it, and they don't even make that step. But yeah, getting started, not giving up, getting around the right people.
Yeah.
Good advice.
And that's still important for us. All these years later, we still need to be around the right people all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, regularly. You need that injection of positivity and people you can bounce ideas off of, and you just learn so much even after all these years, don't you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just watching you, we're always motivated. It inspires us.
Yeah,
even
definitely.
now, 32 years later, that energy is so infectious.
I think it's really important. Who you're around is who you become. And I think it's super important. Some of the strategies as well. I mean, lease option agreements. Man, simple. It's not difficult. If they taught this in school, which we'll get onto, it's not difficult. It's not complicated. But you don't necessarily need to work super hard on a job for 40 years to save enough deposit to buy a house. You can use things like lease option agreements.
Yeah.
You guys did a very juicy lease option agreement. Talk me through the numbers and how that worked.
Well, the numbers, basically, it was a property developer. He wanted to sell this property. He was struggling to sell it because there was no kitchen, there was no bathroom. So effectively, he couldn't sell it to anyone.
Unmortgageable.
Unmortgageable.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
unless they got.
But some people might say you need a mortgage to buy it unless you've got cash.
Unless you got cash, yeah.
But you managed to secure it with neither cash
so
or.
He was just, I don't want to see the property, fed up with it.
Yeah.
So I said, well, we'll pay a lease option fee each month for the property, and we'll have the option for 2 years. So any time in that 2 years, we'll exercise the option to buy it at 225. He said, fine, that's it. It's off my hands. You've got to insure it. You look after it. You do whatever you want to the place.
So you agreed to pay how much per month?
I think it was about £800 a month.
So you basically said, you basically said to the owner, look, Mr. Owner, you want 225.
Yep.
You can't sell it.
Yep.
It's not mortgageable. No one wants to buy it in the state it's in. I'll buy it for 225, but let me fix it up first.
That's it. Exactly
and then he
that.
agreed. So
He agreed.
You secured an option agreement, which is a very legit, very
Not only
standard-
that, we moved into the property.
Oh, you moved in.
We moved in.
Nice.
So I'm quite happy to, by being motivated by dissatisfaction. So we moved into the property. I don't think he was too pleased about it, but
Why was he not pleased?
no. So we moved in the property, started work on it, got all the kitchens in, bathroom, etc. Got it mortgageable, and a few years later we then sold it.
Okay, so the great thing about you living there as well is you have to pay rent to live anyway, don't you?
Exactly.
£800 a month is kind of standard rent. So you were paying £800 a month. You fixed it up. You got it mortgageable. How much did you spend fixing it up?
About 150,000.
Right. And did you use your own money or did you get development finance?
No, used my own money.
Used your own money. Fair enough. But if you didn't have your own money,
Yeah.
guess what?
It was just over the period of
Right.
time. So
you,
yeah.
So you spent 150 on it. So in total, that's 225 plus 150. So you're talking about 375.
375.
And but how much did you sell it for?
575.
575. Again, man, £200,000 clean profit.
But it was our
One
principal
deal.
residence as well.
It was what?
Our principal residence.
And you lived there.
Yeah.
Does that mean you didn't pay any capital gains tax?
Yeah.
Dude, man, Guys, that's incredible. So these skills and these tricks and these tips around property, what would you say, if for someone starting out, best strategy to start with? Because I think a lot of people are confused. They're like, lease option agreement, BRR, serviced apartments in Torquay, auctions, vanilla buy-to-let, and they've got all these different strategies going around. I mean, what would you say best advice to get started?
I think some people have just got a scattergun approach. They're trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Just got to focus on one.
I was just going to say that. Focus on one to start with.
One, and just do that. It depends
do it well,
on people's circumstances, doesn't it?
Learn the skills for that.
If you've got deposits
strategy,
and stuff like that, and you've got money, perhaps do the VRR.
Yeah.
If you haven't got that, perhaps do rent to rent.
Yeah.
What do you think about all these people that are now getting into property and doing? I mean, you see, you've been to 3 crash courses now. You see on Samuel 365, you can see all of these people, winners on a Wednesday, that are doing property. What do you think about that?
That's fantastic.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But do you not think that some investors, what I admire about you guys is the fact that when you see me helping loads of people get into property, some people would think, don't tell them everything, because they'd want to keep all the properties for themselves. Even people that I've helped start from nothing become successful, they don't want to come on Winners on a Wednesday because they're like, I don't want people stealing the ideas. And I'm like, a year ago you were broke and I've helped you and you've become successful, and now you don't want to come on Winners on a Wednesday because you don't want people stealing the ideas. Imagine if I'd have had that attitude with you 12 months ago. I mean, with you guys, you've been in the game for 32 years, but up a £20 million portfolio. Why is it that you love seeing other people win so much?
It's just so exciting. Just seeing the smile on someone's face, that excitement. It's just amazing.
Takes you back to like the early days as well, doesn't it? So, you know, when we were getting started and stuff. It's
we met a young
exciting.
man yesterday. He was at a property conference and he's just starting out rent to rent. And just seeing the enthusiasm and everything.
Yeah, it was lovely.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Because I remember being back there trying to start out, asking questions, and people are a closed book, and you're thinking, well, how did they do it? How did they get that? And they just weren't willing to share that information.
A lot of people aren't.
Yeah, just get around people. Get around people doing it. That's probably what I would say. Just get around people that are doing it and just copy what they're doing. You know, just learn from them, absorb everything.
And a lot of people, I think, will find excuses as to why it's hard for them. They'll say, oh, it's all right for you, or you got lucky, or you... But I think, you know, you guys started with nothing, and, you know, you're both working as hairdressers. Ultimately, that you can either find excuses as to why you can't do something, or you can just dig deep into what the reason is why you need to do this. And, you know, it's great to be inspired by other people. And that's another thing, when you see other people doing it, it's like, actually, there's no reason. It kind of robs you of an excuse. So people right now are going to be watching your story, hearing how you started with nothing. They can either go, holy moly, if they can do it, I can. And they'll be inspired. Or they'll say, oh, well, and they'll try and find a reason or an excuse or justification. Have you guys had, like, haters or people trying to bring you down or come up with excuses as to why you've done it and they can't? Have you had to deal with that?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Sometimes it's a bit difficult. Well, you name one. Hold on.
Well, to be honest, I don't spend much time thinking about that. If people are going to be negative, then move on.
Right.
Move on. Don't waste my energy on worrying about it.
So it happens, you hear it, but you don't want to...
You get a thicker skin.
Yeah.
What's that?
You get a thicker skin over the years.
Well, one of the questions you guys asked me, you told me you wanted me to write a book on dealing with haters, and you said that would be the first book you'd read. Why did you say that?
Sometimes it's difficult. You know, you're running this business, and it is a business. So that's what they have to understand. We're running a business. We're trying to do it ethically and profitably.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jo?
Yeah, no, do you think
that the media sometimes as well, I think this, even when you watch TV shows, you know, the rich guys are always the bad guys.
Yeah,
the media don't like landlords. There's this kind of idea that landlords are greedy people and, you know, try and squeeze the maximum rent out of the tenants. But I got a lot of stick over my book, Buy Low, Rent High, because it's like, buy low, rent high? He's trying to squeeze the rent. But it's like, no, what I'm talking about is buy low.
Yeah.
By finding someone that's got a property that they're motivated to sell it, and I'm helping them out.
You are, yeah.
Rent it high by changing the use and renting breaking it up room by room, providing luxury, affordable accommodation, When you get paid well, it's because you're adding value.
Yeah.
It's because you're helping people.
Yeah.
Greedy landlords almost don't exist. Because if you're a greedy landlord and you try and put the rent really high, you're going to have an empty house. If you're a greedy landlord and you don't fix things, you're going to have bad tenants. You're going to end up damaging your own property. The best way to be, I mean, I'm a capitalist, right? I believe in compassionate capitalism. And I think the best way to get wealthy in business is to help people and is to add value. And as landlords, I mean, you've got 150 properties and, you know, a lot of tenants. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, definitely. It's all about helping people, and like with the service accommodation, it's lovely seeing people going into the property, having a wonderful holiday, seeing all the feedback. They've had an amazing time, so we love seeing that as well.
When did you guys start doing service accommodation in this country? When did you start doing
In this country?
Yes.
Trying to think
When we moved out of Film House.
Yeah, it was probably about 2008.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, we have.
2008.
A very long time.
Yeah.
And that's a large property that accommodated 18 at the time. Yeah.
Serviced accommodation became a big thing when I started teaching it. Right. When the tax changes came in.
Yeah.
Because when Section 24 was announced and they started phasing that in, everybody firstly is thinking, well, hang on a minute. If I'm just going to rent my property out the normal way and I'm getting taxed, unless I can change my property to a company, I'm going to get clobbered with tax.
Yeah.
I need to get some higher rent. I need to get, so that's the first reason. But secondly, with serviced accommodation, Section 24 tax doesn't apply. So more and more people now are buying properties to rent out on short-term lets. What are the pros and cons, would you say, to serviced accommodation via just putting a long-term let in it?
The property's always constantly looked after. You're checking it every week, making sure any maintenance is always dealt with straight away. So
such a good
sometimes a tenant won't even tell you about a maintenance issue. Suddenly you say, well, couldn't you have told me about the seal around the bath going or something like that? You know, and it's been left for months. So you're constantly checking the property, which is always good.
Do you know what about that point? It's funny you say it's ironic because a lot of people don't want to get into serviced accommodation because they're worried, oh, the tenants might damage it or the guests might have parties. But actually, I found the same thing. In serviced accommodation properties, they're pristine.
Yeah.
You have to keep them pristine so your property is actually going to hold its value better. It's
fantastic for the consumer as well, because when we started out, I think in our area, there was only, 10 properties available?
Yeah.
And that's 2008. And now how many is there? There's hundreds of properties now. So it's good for the consumer because the competition's so much higher. The standards are getting higher and higher and higher. And to stay up on top, you've got to keep your standards way up there.
Yeah. Tax benefits are really good as well.
Tax benefits.
Obviously cash flow.
And cash flow is fantastic, especially now with the staycation boom that we've got.
Oh man.
Return is the biggest bonus, I think.
Yeah, absolutely massive. So in terms of your portfolio, you've got a lot of properties.
Yeah.
And as you know about my story and what I'm doing. I've sold off quite a lot of my little properties. I'm moved on to doing development and bigger deals. What's your focus? What's your plan? Are you planning on just continuing to buy more and more houses? Are you moving to do bigger deals, development? What's your plan for the future?
We're looking at doing a bit more development because we've been away for 6 years in Portugal. So we've now come back because our son and daughter are starting to get interested in the property business. So we're looking at doing different things. Just depends. I mean, we've just bought a deal, 12 months ago. It was a pub and a cottage. And it's interesting because it was on Rightmove, but it was with a commercial agent. But the cottage should have been with a residential agent. So they were selling it on a commercial basis and it was way undervalued.
Wow.
That particular one, we paid 80,000 for the pub, 141,000 for the house. We've spent about 5,000 on the house, just had it revalued at 350.
Nice.
And the pub itself, we're now applying for planning permission to turn it into 2 flats. Fantastic.
In terms of lifestyle, how has life changed from when you guys first met? You were working in a salon, you were hairdressers. What's an average day look like now? What does life look like? How's life changed?
Well, we've just got back from 6 years in Portugal. Life's been pretty incredible over there.
Yeah.
We were on Portugal has a scheme called the non-habitual residency, which has massive bonuses for landlords if they're wanting to sell properties. Did you want to speak a bit more about that?
So that was one aspect of our life. We wanted to reduce some of the portfolio, get some of the lesser performing properties out of the portfolio, and mitigate the CGT. And by becoming a non-resident, we're allowed to do that.
Right.
So we moved away, but at the same time, we were still buying properties.
In England.
In England.
Remotely. Okay. So we ran everything.
Buying houses.
So we lived there for 6 years and we ran everything in England remotely, didn't we? So that
I think
was
most
really
of the properties we've bought are all remote.
Yeah.
That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Then. The fact that you've managed to do it so that it's so systemised.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of people think that to be a landlord, you have to buy a property close to your house. Now, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got properties from Penzance to Sunderland.
So,
and obviously properties in Spain, Portugal.
So how do you set up the management system so well?
It's a slow process. You meet good contacts and everything else like that, and if that contact's not performing well, then you find one that is. So we've got a contact now in Sunderland. They source the properties for us. They manage all the refurbishments and everything. Then we have a Zoom meeting with them. We've got the technology now.
Yeah.
We've got the software. There's no reason not to.
So it's just about power team then, really.
Power team.
And having that confidence.
Essential, yeah.
Obviously, the experience, you get the confidence of doing this.
Yeah.
At first, it may seem a little bit nerve-wracking buying a property that you've not actually physically gone in.
Yeah. How many hours a week would you say, in that 6 years living in Portugal, how many hours a week were you guys working combined with relaxing?
We generally worked in the mornings. We tried to knock off around
midday.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
Then we'd go out and have lunch and go out on a boat
so you do
or
a few
have a
hours
nice
a day?
afternoon. Yeah, so mornings were
It's normally start around about 6 o'clock in the morning, then
right.
finish about lunchtime.
Lee is an early riser.
Yeah, I'm an early
I don't
riser.
start at 6.
So I can sit there, check all the accounts, do everything.
Yeah.
And then any maintenance, I can just instruct everyone.
Was that work, do you think that if you really wanted to, could you systemise it completely so that you weren't working at all?
Oh, definitely.
Right.
But I like keeping my finger on the pulse, seeing what's going on.
And you're still growing the business.
And still growing the business.
And a lot of the work is finding new deals, overseeing new deals.
That's the exciting part. That's what I actually like doing.
So you're actively choosing to continue to grow, but if you wanted to, you could just literally walk away from it. So passive income. I hear people saying, passive income, it's a myth. You can't really create passive income. What do you guys think? Been in the game 32 years.
I think passive income, it depends. Even if you've got stocks and shares, is it totally passive? Sometimes you want to manage your portfolio, readjust your portfolio, so it's not totally passive. Unless you get your money, just put it in a bank account. You want to look after your portfolio. You want to see what's going on with your properties.
You like watching the figures.
Some may not be performing too well, or the capital growth's gone up so much, the rent's not matching the capital growth, so you want to sell it, and perhaps buy 2 others. So you still want to monitor that.
You keep an eye on it. You've
got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think
why would anyone work? Why would anyone trade their time for money? We can't understand that philosophy. Passive income.
But that's normal, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's just what we're told.
We've all done it when we were younger.
But property's the fantastic thing. You can actually scale it, and you can scale it as quickly or slowly as you want to.
And what you were talking about, like overseeing it, managing it, checking the numbers, checking the finances. That's the definition of passive income is money with little to no work. So it's not to say, I'm going to buy a few properties and then I'm never going to... You want to look at it. You want to see what's going on. You want to check the finances. But I think it's just about, really what I'm talking about is the idea of being able to replace your income so you don't need to have a job, which I think is very achievable. In fact, to make 2-3 grand a month in property income, when you understand about rent to rents, when you understand about lease option agreements, when you understand about joint ventures, it's not that difficult in my opinion.
No, so it's not difficult.
It's not.
But you've got to be committed and you've got to do the work.
But you've got to be committed and do the work to get a job and go to university. If we were taught, like you're teaching your kids about property, about passive income, about being financially literate, if we were taught that, imagine what would happen if that was taught in schools.
Yeah, incredible.
I wish I had the knowledge I have now back when I started. As I said, I was saving the deposits. I didn't know about rent to rent. I met someone yesterday at a property conference.
Yeah, you mentioned
a good friend of mine. And I said, how's things going? He said, yeah, really good. I said, what are you up to? He said, I've got about was it 120 places? He said, I've got 120 places now. I said, oh, that's really good. Have you bought them? He said, no, all rent to rent.
Right.
Yeah, amazing.
He said, I said, are you doing well? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, I'm making tens of thousands a month from the rent to rent. He said, don't want to buy it. I said, well, why is that? Tell me the reasons why. He said, well, because I'm doing rent to rent, Section 24 doesn't affect me.
Right.
So he said, because I'm actually renting them, he said, I can claim that as a 100% expense.
Yeah.
Of course. But
And I said, oh, I never even thought about that.
Yeah. That's the thing. To make $2-3 grand a month, it's not that difficult. Of course, it's going to take some hard work. Of course, you're going to have to roll your sleeves up, and
definitely.
you're going to have to muck in, and you're going to have to put a lot of effort into it. You as well, also like myself, have a passion to see kids financially educated, and you know about the works that we're doing at my foundation within the schools across, not just in England, but across the world.
Incredible.
You had a little try at one point.
Didn't go too well.
Before you got kicked out, what happened?
I went to my son's school, and you're meant to give a talk about your job. And my opening line was, I haven't got a job.
Yeah.
So I was explaining what I did, and I think the teacher was pretty horrified. I said, I was sort of dismissing, not so much school, but the idea you just don't have to leave school to get a job.
Yeah.
There is another alternative. Have a business and work for yourself.
Yeah. What would be your, if you were to, I wouldn't say regrets, because regret's a strong word, but if you were to do anything, if you were to do things differently, going back from the very beginning, what would you do differently to what you did then?
If I had the knowledge I have now,
Yeah.
I'd have scaled bigger. I would have bought more. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
How would you have done that though? Because you were literally spending every penny.
Yeah, I didn't realise about the rent to rent, about the lease options, about Burr. I didn't realise any of those. All I realised, I was focused on, I have to save a deposit to get another house. That's all I thought about.
I have to say though, it wasn't long into growing the portfolio that you did change your strategy there slightly, because when I met you, you had 8 houses. And I told you that I was saving a deposit to buy a house, didn't I? And what did you say to me?
Oh, this was an interesting story.
It is an interesting story.
When Jo and I first met, I think it was one of our second or third dates or something.
Yeah, it was quite early.
Second or third dates. And I went round to her place, and she had a little picture of this little 2-bedroom house.
I had a 5-year plan actually, with pictures. Yeah.
And I saw
little 2
this,
up, 2 down. I just wanted to buy a small house for me and my daughter. I was a single mum.
Yeah, we were just looking at this picture, and what's that? She said, it's my dream house. It's 2-bedroom. I said,
5-year plan.
And I said, 5-year plan? I said, seems a long plan that to get that.
No, what you said was, how's that going for you? How much have you saved? And I was like, not very well. I've not saved much already. You went, let's look at properties today. So we went out that day and looked at some show homes, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I bought a house that day.
And I went, I said, well, can't wait all this time, 5 years.
That's a terrible plan.
I said, you've got to do it today. I said, let's work out the figures. So we saw the show home. She said, well, I haven't got a deposit. I said, well, you got a credit card. I've worked out the figures, the payment on the credit card, the payment on the house. I said, I've worked everything out.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not advising anyone to buy a house with a credit card, but I said, all works out. I said, if you can't afford it, the rent will pay for your credit card and the house.
And that's good debt. So we're like, I'm not advising you to buy the house with a credit card, but here's a credit card and there's a house. Whatever happens, happens.
So that day you bought it, and your parents went ballistic.
No, I was dreading telling them. I was like, my God, I've just started dating this guy, and I'm going to go home and say, I've just bought a house today.
On a credit card.
I have no money for the deposit.
But the thing is, that's the difference between good debt and bad debt.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy a house with a loan or a credit card or whatever, if the rent is going to pay the interest and more, then why would you not do that?
Exactly. It was the best thing I ever did.
And you still got that house today.
Yeah, I was absolutely terrified at the time, but it was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
But then I read that book many years ago, Russ Whitney.
Russ Whitney.
Russ Whitney. I can't remember the name of the book, but Russ Whitney. And early on in our relationship, you went away for a week with the family, and I read this book, and he said, if all the figures stack up, you should just go for the deal. And I met 2 property investors, and they had some flats for sale, but 1 block of 6 and a block of 5. I went, right, I said all the figures work out, and I actually borrowed all the deposits on credit cards.
Wow.
Bought 11 flats. When you came back, I said, oh, have you been busy? I said, oh, I bought 11 flats, and I still got all the flats today.
Just off the back of reading a book.
Reading a book.
And then your mind just completely
Yeah.
changed.
It just changed that psyche.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, it works. It makes commercial sense.
That's the thing. I mean, a lot of the, for me, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No, I read that later on, yeah.
Which came later, which was like a real woof, wow. And I mean, for me, being able to have that same, being able to change the way that people think about finances through our training company and through my videos and my books and stuff, it really does change people's lives, because when you're financially literate and you understand the difference between an asset and a liability, you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, you understand why not to save money and put it in the bank, why you don't need to have a job and trade your time with money forever until you're 67. When you understand you don't have to do that, there is another way.
Yeah.
It is very, very liberating, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, it's so refreshing, yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of properties as well, like a lot of people ask me, they say, why don't you own where you live? Because I'm a proud renter at the moment. So do you rent where you live, or do you own where you live?
We own where we live, but we have properties around it, and that basically services it.
Sorry, how do you mean?
So I wanted a nice house.
Yes.
And the property we bought was basically an estate. So it's got a manor house on it.
Yeah.
With all cottages, but the cottages service the main property.
Oh, so you've got outbuildings?
Not outbuildings, they're houses. So
Yeah.
it's like a small estate,
Oh, wow.
small country
Fair
estate.
enough. So what do you think of my philosophy of renting where you live?
For me, I would want to buy, but there again, the reason I want to buy is because I can see an angle on it as well. So
Yeah.
for me, I bought this lovely house, but it had all the outbuildings. If it didn't have the outbuildings, I wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your strategy for renting where you live makes perfect sense, really. But again, it's not that dissimilar to what we did, whereas we wanted the properties to fund the main house. So
Yeah.
that's what we did.
Because some people can't get over why property investors that own lots of properties would possibly want to rent where they live.
Well, it's a bit like a car. It's like
Yes.
buying your car.
Yeah.
Would you want to buy the car, spend £50,000 buying the car, or use that 50,000 to
I'd
do a
rather lease
burst
it.
strategy and then lease the car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think leasing your lifestyle, in my opinion, makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, it does make
Lease
sense.
your lifestyle and then use your money to invest, and then the money that you make from the investments, live the lifestyle that you want.
Definitely.
So if you're starting all over again from scratch and you had your 150 houses taken off you,
Yeah.
all your money, everything taken from you, the only thing that you've got is your knowledge from what you've done, what are you going to do?
What am I going to do? For me, if I had not one penny,
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't start trying to save all over again.
No.
It's too long and very painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That takes years doing that, and
Yeah.
I did that for about 10 years and then realised that's going to be very slow doing that. That's where we started doing the other strategies. So definitely start networking
Yeah.
in the right groups with the right people. And then yesterday we met someone, he's starting out in rent to rent. I then introduced him to a letting agent, and he said, well, I actually do rent to rent myself. I've got all these properties. I understand this strategy. So put the two together. So this young man is now going off to do
Yeah.
rent to rent.
Yeah.
And he'll take the advice from the letting agent.
Yeah.
He said, because I'm going to advise you right, because if I advise you wrong,
Yeah.
then obviously it's going to come back
Yeah.
on me. So
So
this
what
young
would you
man-
do? Would you do rent to rent?
Me, if I was going to do it,
Yeah.
I'd probably do rent to
What
rent.
about you,
Rent,
Jo?
lease options, rent to rent, all
Lease
those
options,
strategies
rent-
you
Yeah.
can do with no money.
Packaging
Definitely.
and selling deals? Get some quick cash?
A
Yeah.
package. We've done a bit of that.
Yeah.
Selling
Yeah.
deals. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done a few, not many.
Yeah.
Done about 3. At the time, I didn't have the funds or didn't want to do it, whatever it was.
Sell it on.
I knew someone else that would fit their criteria.
Yeah.
So
you'd basically do rent to rent, control properties, maybe do a bit of deal selling to get some cash
Yeah,
in.
it wouldn't
and
take
then
long.
You'd find great deals, maybe bring joint venture partners in on the deals.
Definitely.
Rebuild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
rebuild.
It wouldn't take long. Be much
It
quicker
wouldn't.
the second time round.
It wouldn't.
second time round, it wouldn't
wouldn't-
take
yeah.
long.
wouldn't take long.
The knowledge is everything. So, you know.
Would you rather me strip you from all of your knowledge or strip your houses from you? Ooh.
Tough.
Well, obviously, we need to retain the knowledge. That's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's quite a
100%.
big statement, though. That's quite a big thing to say. To say you'd rather lose all your houses than have your knowledge all completely sucked out of you.
well, if we didn't have the knowledge, we couldn't possibly manage all the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
we-
build more.
Or build
teach
more.
your
Yeah,
son.
exactly.
teach your son, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the most important factor, I think. Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like that though.
Yeah.
I'd rather, because
Yeah.
if I lost all my houses, I know I'd go and get them again.
Yeah, exactly.
If I lost all my money, lost everything, I'd be able to rebuild it. But if I lost my knowledge, then I'd
Yeah.
be useless. And
Yeah.
what I've got, fine, would stay, but I wouldn't be able to build, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to leave a legacy, I wouldn't be able to train people.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting though.
Yeah.
It's been really, really interesting chatting with you guys. I hope
Oh, it's
people have-
been an absolute
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thanks so much for having us.
And thank you so much for inspiring everyone out there.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
fantastic.
Well, it's a real welcome, and I'm glad to see what your son's done. What would your advice be? You've been to 3 crash courses now. What would be your advice to someone starting out that's thinking about, or not even starting out? Maybe they've been in property like you guys have for 32 years. What would you say to someone that was thinking about coming along as experienced investors that have been 3 times? What would your advice be?
What have you got to lose? Literally, what have you got to lose?
Nothing to
You
lose,
go along there
everything to gain, yeah.
and you've got everything to gain.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming down to my house.
Oh,
It's been a
thank you
real
so much for
pleasure.
the invite. Really
It's
appreciate
been great
it.
seeing you and getting to know you guys over the last
Yeah,
year
lovely.
or so. So there we have it, folks. I hope you guys got a lot of information from this. There's so many golden nuggets. Why don't you go ahead, smash the like button after this great interview with Lee and Jo. Also, if you've got questions, comments, thoughts, drop them in the comment box below. I've also interviewed honestly hundreds of people that are smashing it in property. So if you want more inspiration, you can check out an entire playlist up here. I've been doing this for almost 3 years, interviewing people every single week. Don't forget to subscribe up here. And if you want to join me in person at the Property Investors Crash Course, it's free. I'll leave a link in the description below. Thanks so much. Peace out. See you next time.